In 2001, WCW was a company that was on the rise, but unfortunately, the previous 2 years of bad booking decisions, bad buy rates, and just general poor running of the company had already taken its toll, and it was a virtual unsavable company. But, like I said, it was a company on the rise, and they were setting a good base for what they thought was going to be a restart of the company, but Time Warner did not want to keep showing Nitro, and they couldn't get it anywhere else. So, the first WCW pay-per-view of 2001 was the first ever, only ever, WCW Sin. And it kicked off with Chavo Guerrero defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Sugar Shane Helms. This was a phenomenal match with two phenomenal cruiserweights who can work a multitude of styles, and they worked every single one of them in this match. And just fast-paced, technical wrestling, high-flying, whatever you wanted them to do, they did. And in the end, I believe the right guy went over. Chavo Guerrero, they were pushing him on top of the Cruiserweight division at the time. And then we had Reno versus Big Vito. Typical kind of, not big guy, but brawler, decent sized guys match. Nothing entirely special, but still decent. And Reno went over with his finisher that WCW was really pushing at the time, called the Roll the Dice, which is Crossroads. Then the Young Dragons versus Evan Courageous and Jamie Noble. And this was another great match with four great cruiserweights. And at this time, WCW was really, they had fixed the cruiserweight division. It was back to being what it was in 97 and 98 and 96. And the Young Dragons went over. And then Ernest Miller versus Mike Sanders. Throwaway match. It was decently entertaining. But Ernest Miller went over and became commissioner. And then we had a very unique match. A penalty box match with the recently returned face, Jim Duggan. Because, yeah, Vince Russo turned Jim heel. We have Team Canada, Lance Storm, Mike Awesome, who they were finally trying to fix from the way they destroyed him the year prior, and Elix Skipper against the Filthy Animals, Conan, Rey Mysterio Jr., and Billy Kidman. And this was a fun match, and the whole penalty box thing, if you got caught cheating, you got thrown in the penalty box for however amount of time. So it could be down to 3-on-1, 2-on-1, 1-on-1, depending on what happened. And in the end, Team Canada got the win. And then Ming versus Terry Funk and Crowbar for the WCW Hardcore title. This was an entertaining hardcore match. Terry Funk, no matter how old he is, he always puts on good shows in hardcore matches. And in an odd set of circumstances, Ming wins, but then 2-3 weeks later shows up at the Royal Rumble. So that happened. And then we have the Natural Born Thrillers, Sean O'Haire and Chuck Palumbo versus the Insiders, Kevin Nash and DDP, for the tag titles. This was a fun match. The Natural Born Thrillers were a group of guys where some had potential, some didn't, and these two did, with O'Haire and Palumbo. Palumbo just never really had the personality, and I don't know what people didn't see in O'Haire. But as a team, I liked them. And I still like watching them as a team because they worked really well together. And right guys went over. Palumbo and O'Haire went over. They won the tag titles. And then Shane Douglas versus General Rection First Blood chain match for the WCW US title. This one is kind of backwards booking because it's a chain match. You can get the chain that is hanging above the ring and use it. But when the ref caught Shane Douglas with the chain that he brought, oh no, you have to get rid of it. And even the announcers were selling that as being cheap. I don't understand why they did that. I just don't. That's the one really weird thing about the one thing that stuck around about WCW was their kind of double standards booking in certain cases. But Shane Douglas went over, won the U.S. title, gave him a push they should have given him from the get-go, but I could rant for a long time about missed opportunities in WCW. Then we had Totally Buffed, which was Lex Luger and Buff Bagwell, versus Goldberg and Dwayne Bruce, a.k.a. Buddy Lee Parker, and he ran the power plant. And this was during an angle where Goldberg was promised a future world title shot, but only if he could break his own winning streak. And he was relatively early in it at this point, and it was a decent match. It was mostly Goldberg getting in the offense for his team, and a little bit of Dwayne Bruce, and then they had a plant in the crowd spray Goldberg with mace. And even after the mace, Goldberg got in some offense. But they ended up getting the advantage on him. Luger and Bagwell did. And they gave him a combination blockbuster electric chair. And they beat him. And he was banned from WCW for life. And then we have the infamous Fatal 4-Way match for the WCW World Heavyweight title. Scott Steiner, who was in a run that I particularly enjoy, versus Jeff Jarrett, versus Sid Vicious, versus Ric Flair's Mystery Man. And this is the match, infamously, where Sid Vicious had the nastiest leg break you will ever see in a wrestling ring. He was going for a boot off the middle rope, and his leg snapped, and it was just his foot was just bleh, just dangling there. And so they had to end it early. They sent out the Mystery Man, who happened to be Road Warrior Animal. Woohoo! Not the Road Warriors. Road Warrior Animal himself alone. And Steiner won. This match was not good at all. At all. But that really wasn't their fault. It really couldn't be good since it had to be cut probably a lot short due to the Sid Vicious leg break. And this was a good pay-per-view. It wasn't great. It wasn't really good. It was just good. And there was a renewed sense of excitement for WCW guys because it had recently been announced to them, at least, I believe, that Eric Bischoff was leading a group of people to buy it, and they were going to restart WCW, and that's why Goldberg was forced to retire. That's why Sting was taken out, and all these other guys. It was going to be rebooted as Eric and Eric Bischoff's WCW, and they were all gonna come back and take out the big evil Steiner and Ric Flair's group, which formed on this show. And that's it. We will get the other two WCW pay-per-views from 2001 out of the way later. And that's my thoughts.